Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this week, What's Happening from the Mind Science Institute here. Richard Hill, really enjoying the research that's coming out this week, and something came out which I thought was rather interesting, because an all too not examined part of the brain, because, well, you know, out of sight, out of mind, the insula. Now, the insula, it's interesting, it's spelled both without the R and with the R. So the insula, just with I-N-S-U-L-A, and the insular cortex, which is I-N-S-U-L-A-R, cortex, so it's, who knows, just spell it whenever you want. But the insular cortex, this area, this fold of cortical tissue that is folded within the brain, just in behind the temporal area, sort of down in through the middle on either side. And it's a really important area. It's to do with a lot of stuff. Certainly it's talked about a lot in relation to interoception, interoception, that sense of self-awareness. You know, where the parietal is sort of the awareness of self in space, the insular is the aware of the self in the self. So it's one of the things which is interesting is it's the area that lights up when assessing the degree of pain. So it's connected to the thalamus, it's connected to the amygdala. It has a sense of these sorts of relationships in the body and within the body. Self-awareness, talked about as being a part of consciousness. So I made some other notes here to see if there's some other things. What have I missed? Oh yes, I love the way it's sort of, so where is it? It's some people say it's part of the telencephalon. Some people say it's part of the temporal lobe. Some people say it's part of the limbic system. But it's tucked right in there, just behind and in the context of the temporal lobes. So very interesting in that respect. But what this paper is about, and it's from the Journal of Neurolinguistics, and let me see, Alfredo Ardila and company have done this look at the relationship of the insula to language and language production and language relationship, because the insula is there in direct contact with Broca's and Wernicke's further back, so the anterior part to Broca's and the posterior part in relation to Wernicke's, and that gives it direct relationship to what's going on in language. And these guys did a meta-analysis looking for connective. I mean, we're all now looking at connections. I mean, I'm getting really excited, sort of a bit of a sidebar, but really excited about the activity that is caused through the brain just through waveforms, just through waves being set up, through frequencies being set up. But anyway, that's another story. So for now, just looking at, and they found interesting things. They looked through, they found that it was to do with language production, language understanding, as we know in Broca's and in Wernicke's. There was also to do with language repetition in the supramarginal gyrus, also to do with other areas. Broca's area 9, up in the left prefrontal lobe, and also to do with Broca's area 37, which is related to semantic associations. So as they say in their abstract, in conclusion, the insula represents a core area in language processing as it was suggested in the 19th century. Wernicke in particular was talking about this way back then. So have a look at that. I mean, have a look at the insula anyway. If you haven't looked for a while, go in and check it out. Really interesting stuff and worth looking at. What's on? It's early days. But I think it's, I'd like to mention already at this stage, the next Milton Erickson Foundation Conference. Now that's going to be in December, as it usually is. December, and this year is December 11 to 14. It's at the Hyatt Regency in Orange County in LA. And this is a brief therapy conference this year. It's focusing around anxiety, depression, and trauma. I've got a submission then. You know, fingers crossed. I get I'll do a short course. But great friends of mine there, and in particular, a mate of mine called Reed Wilson will be there. Fabulous expert in dealing with trauma and anxiety particularly. He was an enormous amount of help to me as I worked with my mother when she went through the anxiety and trauma of the latter years with her various dementias and so on and so forth. So the reason why I'm saying it is because super special price up to April 25. So early bird price up to April 25. I mean, it's just like a little under half price. What's it, about $300 or $400 you can go and get 3 or 4 days of this amazing stuff. Love the Ericsson Foundation. They do great stuff. So there you go. Two things. Check out the Insula. Insula in relation to language production, as well as these introspective perspectives of self-awareness. And the Milton Erickson Foundation Conference in December. Get in now for a good cheap price and to make sure you have your place.
Hello everybody, and welcome to UCLA campus in Los Angeles in California.
I wish they all could be California. I wish they all could be California. I wish they all could be California.
And we have behind me the wonderful symbol of UCLA, the Bruins, so that wonderful bear. But we're here for the IPNB conference, the Interpersonal Neurobiology Conference, and this year celebrating the work of Alan Shaw, Dr. Alan Shaw, who's done so much amazing work, particularly with right brain activity.
In other parts, we'll be discussing unproven hypotheses. And for those of you who don't know what a hypothesis is, it's a guess. It does not stand on factual information, but we'll just have to see how we go with this presentation. As always, each of you must decide for yourselves whether there's anything that you want to take away with you. And always remember that an association between two factors does not prove that one causes the other. John Bowlby gave us the science of love, the internal working model of attachment, where both positive and negative...
Well, hello everybody. Here I am back in Australia after a wonderful conference and wonderful time over in the US. Now, that talk that we just heard a little bit of from Sir Richard Bowlby went on to say some fascinating stuff. They've been doing some research. This is just research funded by himself, private research, but that's kind of good because it gives you some freedom to work. But they were looking at the nature of insecure attachments in youth, and later the appearance of dementia, and the risk factors and the extent to which that increased the possibility that people would have dementia. And the surprising result was that it was true, that in the sample they did, in this sort of proof of principle research, which needs a lot more work, and he's the first to describe that, of somewhere between, I think there are two groups of 60 they did, but what he was saying was that when they looked at on late onset dementia, late onset brain damage, loss of memory capacity, that it was higher in those people who had the insecure attachments, particularly trauma attachments, because of trauma. One of the suggestions was that if we are suppressing memory over a long, long period of time, does that incline the brain to be more prepared to lose memory capacities? Does it make the hippocampus more fragile? Does it make it more susceptible for apoptosis? No idea, all speculation, but how interesting. There were lots of other fabulous talks at the conference. We won't go into too much of them now because that's going to take too much time. I mean, Dan Siegel did a wonderful presentation again and looked at the history of the way we've developed. We had wonderful stories about the anthropology, about how we're not designed to be where we are. Stan Tatkin was there talking about new ways, a new sort of therapeutic process that he's developed. And all the way through, constantly giving us that reminder, that interpersonal nature. Lou Cozzolino's talk on the social necessity for engagement in order to develop mind and brain, and cultural perspectives, particularly looking at his very recent interest and latest interest in education. So that was the amazing UCLA conference, the Lifespan Learning Conference, looking again at interpersonal neurobiology, and of course the whole point of it was to celebrate the expressions and the life and the 20th anniversary of the first book publishing of Alan Shaw. Alan Shaw, who's done so much work on right brain understanding and understanding the affective regulation principles. His famous Green Book, which has now been followed up by several others, the different colours. It's just nice the way they're moving through the affect regulation process. So check out that. Check out Lifespan Learning at UCLA to see the sorts of things they're doing. Look out for next year's conference in March, and join me, because I guess I'll be there. I kind of mecca my way there all the time. And just lastly, a quick update what's coming up. Here's something a little bit further down the track. It's in October. It's the Neuro Leadership Institute's conference. That's going to be in San Francisco, October 7 to 9. And what we are, we're just in the early bird area, the pre-conference, the 10% discount. I find the Neuro Leadership a bit expensive, but they really do have great stuff. And not only do they have wonderful leaders in neuroscience, is all led by David Rock, who's now Dr. David Rock. He's sort of really put his nose to the grindstone and got his PhD. But there'll be Maynard Webb, who's the chairman of Yahoo, and also Roseanne Williams, who's the president of Starbucks in Canada, along with fabulous people, like Josh Davies, who's from Barnard University, and Carol Dweck from Stanford. So really great and interesting people if you're interested in this idea of neuro leadership, how we take the neuroscience into business. For this week, and I'm sorry about the last couple of weeks, a little bit sort of stuck in LA, and having had my first earthquake in LA, I bid you fond adieu, and I hope you enjoy your upcoming week. Bye now. Hello everybody. Here I am in lovely Narrabeen in Sydney with this beautiful river behind me. I wanted to talk today about art. We talk about art therapy, but this is more art from the point of view of the practitioner. And I love this, the beautiful saying, art as a way of knowing. And in Psychiatric Times this week, there's a lovely article